Syracuse's offense shouldn't have many problems against UConn, but can the defense of Syracuse hold up its end of the bargain? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. On this week's Poll Friday, I asked you all your prediction for Syracuse football versus UConn this Saturday inside the JMA Wireless Dome at noon Eastern. So that's what we're going to talk about here on today's mini podcast. Now, for those that don't know, in case you missed the crossover podcast that we did yesterday with the host of Locked On UConn, Mike Manansky, I already gave my prediction for this game. I am picking Syracuse to beat UConn on Saturday, 42-33. So I have both teams putting up a lot of points in this one. The results are in for this week's Poll Friday. Let's get to your thoughts on this. There were about 600 votes. And in first place, Syracuse football to win this game in a close one, got about 50% of the vote. In second place, Syracuse in a blowout, got over 40% of the vote. Then in third, UConn in a close one. And in fourth, UConn in a blowout over Syracuse. I think for the most part, of the people that voted on this week's Poll Friday, you all mostly got it right. I think UConn in a close one could have gotten more votes than it did. But regardless, I think you got the results pretty much accurate, or I guess the most likely outcomes accurate. And I'm going with Syracuse in a close game, as I already mentioned, 42-33. Here's where I'm confident with Syracuse football. And you can pretty much tell my thoughts on this game in my score prediction. I think Syracuse is going to be able to put up a lot of yards against UConn, and I think Syracuse is going to be able to put up a lot of points against this UConn defense. This is not the Tennessee defense that Syracuse went up against last week, and Syracuse managed to score 4 touchdowns in that game, and only 2 teams did that against Tennessee last year, Ohio State and Georgia. So it's a pretty big deal that Syracuse was able to put up 4 scores against the Tennessee defense. And we also heard Mike Manansky of Locked On UConn express his concerns about the UConn defense and the missed tackles that they had against Central Connecticut in week 1. And Central Connecticut is an FCS opponent. On top of that, UConn is not going to have on defense arguably its best player in defensive back Malachi McClain. So when I look at the matchups across the board, Syracuse and UConn and everything that goes into it, I see no reason and no excuse why this Syracuse offense can't have a big day against UConn on Saturday. What are your thoughts? Comment in the comments section below. How many points do you think Syracuse is going to put up against UConn? You think they're going to put up 40 plus like I believe? Maybe even 50 plus? Or maybe you're a little bit more conservative and say 20 to 30 points against a team like UConn. Comment in the comment section below. I am very confident in the Syracuse offense against UConn on Saturday, but the defense still has a lot of question marks. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Syracuse. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. I imagine there's going to be a lot of energy in the building for week 2 for Syracuse and UConn. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real here. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices magically just jumping at the checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to store last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And honestly, Gametime, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Hey, Locked On Syracuse fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. I think by now we're all kind of aware of the Achilles heel of this Syracuse team. The offense is expected to be really good once again this year after a pretty solid week one performance. The special teams look much improved from a year ago, but this defense was not very good against Tennessee. They were not very good in 2024, and I am still concerned about this Syracuse defense heading into this matchup against UConn. And it doesn't help that, according to head coach Fran Brown, Devin Grant, Syracuse starting safety, is 50-50 to play on Saturday against UConn. That's not exactly good because even if Devin Grant is available and he can play against UConn, I'd imagine that he is not going to be 100% in this game. And let's talk about UConn's offense for just a moment, because it's not just about the Syracuse defense here. We have to credit the other team here and why I believe UConn is going to score 30 plus against Syracuse. Their quarterback, Joe Fagnano, he might not light the world on fire with his numbers, but he does not make a lot of mistakes. Last year, he only had 4 interceptions in over 200 pass attempts. And last week against Central Connecticut, he did not have an interception. UConn's weapons. They got 2 very capable running backs in Cam Edwards and Mel Brown. Cam Edwards had a 71-yard touchdown run against Syracuse last year. And Styler Bell on the outside, that wide receiver that we've been talking about all week, he could be a future NFL player one day. There are legitimate offensive players here on this UConn team. And stopping UConn, look, here's the deal. Ultimately, we talked about this earlier in the week. I'm challenging this Syracuse defensive front to be a lot better in this game. I'm not expecting perfection from the Syracuse defense and the Syracuse front more specifically, but I don't think it's too much to ask to be better against UConn this week than they were last week against Tennessee. With all due respect to UConn and the improvements that they have made as a program, this team still is not better than Tennessee. And it's also a game that Syracuse should win outright. After all, even though it's relatively close point spread, Syracuse still on FanDuel right now is about a touchdown favorite. So Syracuse should be able to handle its business at home against a team like UConn. Now, Syracuse against Tennessee, they actually did blitz a lot, which is surprising because A, they don't really blitz a lot historically under Elijah Robinson, their defensive coordinator, but B, they generated no pressure on Joey Aguilar throughout that Tennessee game, despite blitzing. They generated nothing against a guy like Joey Aguilar. So not only am I challenging this Syracuse team to actually get home when they blitz against Joe Fagnano, but be able to rush 4 and get home at a much higher rate than they have been in the past against this UConn team. I want to also see this defense against UConn make legitimate plays. We already talked about how Joe Fagnano does not make a lot of mistakes. And Cam Edwards, Mel Brown, they're really good on the ground. I imagine they're not going to be fumbling the ball all over the field, although it would be nice if they are. But last week against Tennessee, Syracuse on defense, I don't think they made really a single play. Yeah, they had technically a forced turnover, but we talked about that forced turnover quite a bit on this show and how really it was because of a botched exchange. Unless you're relying on Joe Fagnano to drop the ball on a handoff, that's not exactly a good strategy if you're this Syracuse defense. I want to see this Syracuse defense this week actually force the issue on the UConn offense and be able to get home rushing only 4 guys and, dare I say, actually be able to get home when they blitz against this UConn team. But overall, I do think Syracuse is going to beat UConn on Saturday. I have Syracuse winning this game once again, 42-33. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below on that prediction. I think the offense for Syracuse is going to have a great day. I guess the defense is going to be a little bit better in this one, but we're still going to have concerns about the defense following the game. That being said, just get the win. We let off the show early in the week how this game against UConn is essentially a must-win game for Syracuse football. It's very difficult to look at Syracuse's schedule and find 6 wins on the schedule if they can't beat UConn at home in week 2. So it's a big game for Syracuse. Obviously, big game for UConn. This is the first time in quite a while I think UConn legitimately has hope and UConn legitimately believes it can win this game. And it's not just coming from UConn fans. The sports books are also saying, hey, there's an upset possibility here inside the Dome on Saturday. And it's up to Syracuse to say, no upset coming. Syracuse wins this game. Once again, I have them winning 42-33. As far as what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse here in the near future, well, you guessed it. Tomorrow, Syracuse and UConn, they play each other at noon Eastern. There will be a full post-game reaction podcast after the game. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.